Is that what it is? You do the math, am I right?
Yes, no. I have, for the bottom one, I have 46,300.
No, can't be 46,000.
Don't we have to use the 10% because the market?
10%
Yeah, that's what I thought too. That's why I said 10%.
1,632?
So we would do 10,000 times the 6.1446 times 8%.
If it yields 10%, then that isn't that the market
The market
rate? What
rate.
it yields,
What?
what it yields, the percentage that it yields, that's the market rate.
That's the market rate.
It says yields 10%.
The stated rate is
On the
8.
bottom.
Oh, crap. I thought it was the other way around. Well, then these are both wrong. All right, so they're 8% and they're to yield 10%. So the present value of 1.3855. And then the other one at 10% is 6.1446. So this should be 61,446, and this should be what? 38,550?
Yes.
So 6 and 6, 4, 5, 9, 4 and 5, 9, 1 and 9. And that's 9. Is this right?
Don't we have to multiply that by 8%? 100,000 times 8% times the point.
Yeah, well, you mean the interest payments are wrong.
Yeah, that would be.
It should be 8,000. So y'all let me write 8%, I mean 10% in when it should have been 8%. So 8,000, that's gonna be around 48 something. How much is it? 48,000.
$49,156.8.
49,
156.8.
156,
0.8.
157, round to the nearest dollar. Okay. Now are these numbers right? Okay, so now let's add 7, 5 and 5, 10, 0, carry 1. 6 and 5 and 11, 1, carry 1. 50 and 38 is 88. 107. Is this one of our choices?
Well,
Nope.
it's 87,707.
What?
I got
87,707. Yeah.
Did I mess it up? 1 and 6, 5 and 5, 10, 0, carry 1. 2 and 5, oh, that is a 7. 9 and 8, that is a 7, carry 1. 5 and 3 is 8. So 87,707, yeah. I'm on drugs, people. I can't help it. 87,707, the answer is A. But here's another chapter in which we had to do time value of money and compute this. So we did it in 14, we're doing it in 17, and we'll be doing it again later in the course. So you've got to learn this, as I said in chapter 14. I said to skip 4, 5. Let's go to 6 on the next page. On September 1, the Consol Company acquired $10,000 face, 8% bonds of Envoy Corporation at 104. The bonds were dated May 1 and mature in 5 years on April 30, with interest payable each October 31 and April 30. What entry should Consol make to record the purchase of the bonds? Now, we did a problem in this chapter, remember, where we bought the bonds between interest payment dates? All right, so we paid 104 for these $10,000 bonds. So why don't you multiply 10,000 times 104% and see what you get as the cost of the bonds. $10,400, right? So look how easy this is. We know now the answer is A. But let's keep going. How much interest would we get? 10,000 times 8% times the last time the bonds paid interest was April 30. So they haven't paid for May, June, July, and August. So the interest would be 10,000 times, what's the stated rate? 8% times what I just say, 4 months?
Yeah.
Okay, so what is that going to be? 267 bucks for 266. So now notice they record it as interest receivable. What we did is we recorded it as a debit to interest revenue. But they did it the slightly different way, but they'll wind up in the same place. So the answer is A. We're supposed to skip number 7. Let's go to number 8. On July 1 of year 2, York purchased as a long-term investment $1 million of Park Inc.'s 8% bonds for $946,000, which includes accrued interest of $40,000. So would you somewhere out to the left just write 946 minus 40 equals 906? They paid 906 for the bonds. The $40,000 they paid was interest. The bonds are purchased to yield 10%. The bonds mature on January 1 of year 8 and pay interest annually on January 1. York uses the effective interest method of amortization. In its December 31 year 2 balance sheet, what amount should York report as investment in bonds? Well, again, you told me in chapter 14 that you did bond amortization tables in 371. So you did it in 371. We did it in 372 in chapter 14, and now you're doing it again in chapter 17. So remember, it's date, cash received, interest revenue, amortization, which remembers the difference between those two, and carrying value. This date is July 1 of year 2. And the carrying value was what, 909, 906? Hello? 906?
Yeah.
946.
No, it was 946, including $40,000 of prepaid interest. So you paid 906 for it. Okay? All right, so now the cash received is face value times stated rate times time, and the interest revenue is carrying value times market rate times time. So, what is the face value? $1 million times, what's the stated rate? 8%. And it's once a year. Okay, the carrying value is 906. The market rate, they're priced to yield 10%. And And that's supposed to be once a year. But they're asking us, if I'm not mistaken, what is the carrying value of the bonds? At what amount should these be reported at December 31, year 2? So they're asking us for this amount right here on December 31 of year 2, which is halfway. You with me? So somebody please do the math. 1 million times 8% times 1/2 of that period. Is that going to be 40,000? Yeah. Okay, now take 906,000, multiply times 10%, and then multiply that times 1/2.
45,300. 45,300.
45,300. Okay, so the amortization is how much? 5,300, right? And what are we going to do? We're going to add to the 906 or subtract to get the new carrying values? Because we're headed to 1 million, that will be 911,300. 911,300, so our answer better be A. Questions? You see how important that stuff you did back in 371 and we did in chapter 14, how important that is? Because it's going to keep coming up over and over and over again. Okay, number 9. On July 1 of year 1, Cody paid $1,198,000 for 10% 20-year bonds with a face amount of $1 million. Interest is paid on December 31 and June 30. The bonds were purchased to yield 8%. Cody uses the effective interest method to recognize interest income from this investment. The bonds were properly classified as held to maturity, so they should be reported on the balance sheet at amortized cost. What should be reported as the carrying amount of the bonds in Cody's December 31 year 1 balance sheet? Okay, you should be able to take exactly what I did here, erase these numbers, plug in your new numbers, and what they're asking for again is this amount. What goes here? So, was it July 1, what they say, year 1, year 2, or what?
Year 1.
Year 1. And they are asking for December 31, year 1, right?
Yes.
Okay. So this is what they're asking for. So why don't you fill in what the numbers are, and before you go any further, we'll confirm that.